As the 2025 season gets closer and closer, who's on the hot seat or who can't afford a bad season to maybe become on the hot seat? Plus, NCAA tournament right around the corner. We discuss all of that and more today on the Locked On Big Ten Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big Ten Squad. From USC to Ohio State, from Michigan to Oregon, from Nebraska to Washington, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big Ten weekend. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big Ten Squad.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Big Ten Squad. Some say it's the best time of the week. We feel that way because we're the ones that show up all the time, and we represent the Big Ten better than anybody. I'm your man, Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers, also Roman Tomashoff, Locked On Huskies, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA, Zach Seiko of Locked On Nittany Lions, and Trent Condon, Locked On Hawkeyes. We're all here. Perfect timing there, Trent. We appreciate that. We've got a lot to get to on the show today. We'll talk some NCAA tournament for the basketball side of things, since that does get started in less than a week, plus coaches who could find themselves on the hot seat after a bad year in 2025. But guys, there's some names on this list in terms of head coaches around the Big Ten who are already on a hot seat going into the season. I made a list of a couple, and I want to start with Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer because of your crosstown rival. What about Lincoln Riley? Are we jumping on the train that it is time for him to win in Los Angeles?
I thought the idea was he was supposed to win right away. He had his best season in his first year, and it's kind of just been like, what are they doing? You sent like, all right, what we talk about today? And I was like, Lincoln Riley just comes to mind. It just has to come to mind, right? What is he going to do and actually win? Is he going to get bigger in the trenches? Are they going to do something? He seems like that clear-cut guy that, is it time to win in LA, or is he going to shut down the media like he always does? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I know, Seiko, I think you're on the Lincoln Riley hot seat train too, aren't you?
I would give it. It's mostly about the expectations at USC. So I would give some grace to Lincoln Riley because I think they are building in the right direction. So I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate that I wouldn't personally fire Lincoln Riley. You landed a really good head coach, but you got to figure out what the disconnect is. Why was it working in Oklahoma and why is it not working in SoCal? So Mark would be great to weigh in on this, obviously. And so, but to be able to, they seem to be building out a really strong staff. They were able to retain their defensive coordinator. I look at this, the Big Ten's already had so much of a coaching shakeup. I would add maybe Maryland's Mike Loxley to this list, especially since he is getting the support. They're obviously doing something, because if they're going to land some of these top tier recruits or even be in the running or the conversation for them, there's probably been some sort of unnamed increase in NIL. But besides the point, everybody's still relatively new to start there. I don't look at Jerome Moore as being on the hot seat potentially. Guys who succeeded right away, Jacob, your team, Kurt Signetti. So he already has the backing, the support. Everybody else is, for the most part, safe. James Franklin would never be on the hot seat here. Dan Lanning just got an extension. Obviously, Ryan Day, who was a common name a season ago, just won a national title. So the Big Ten Conference, there's a lot of stability here outside of maybe Maryland and Northwestern, because they don't care about football.
Well, that's fair. And I was going to ask Jay Stevens if he was able to join us from Locked On Buckeyes, the irony of going into a playoff where if they lose in the first round, Ryan Day could be fired. And then he said, no, it's fine. We'll just win a national title. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right, Roman?
Oh, it must be nice, right? So I want to take it back to the Lincoln Riley thing, because I love what both Zachs just threw out there. I wanted to take a middle ground, because on the positive side of Lincoln Riley, USC is recruiting at a very, very high level right now. They've done a really great job on the recruiting trail, especially getting back into California, which has been such a truly embarrassing struggle for that program as of late. But that's a nice thing for them. But on the other side, the success has not translated on the field. Hiring Danton Lynn was a really nice move. Didn't necessarily pay off in the way you hope it would in the first season. And at the same point, what are you going to do with that contract? Where USC's got money. Like we all know that. But that $10 million a year, what's that buyout going to end up being as of this point? $70, $80 million? You're not necessarily going to make that move right away. And USC could certainly go out and hire a top-tier coach, but it's a really interesting just topic to bring up, because both sides have a very fair argument where even in 2023 with Caleb Williams, you didn't do enough to be considered one of the elite coaches in college football, but we know he has that pedigree. So USC is kind of in limbo, but I think Lincoln is doing a really good job on the recruiting trail right now, trying to, turn down the heat a little bit, let's say.
That's fair. I think that's okay. And look, we know in college football, if you can recruit at a high level, they'll give you a little bit longer of a leash, right? And I'm curious on what Trent has to say, because I made a little bit of a list, and I got to admit, I put your guy on there. I put Ferentz on there. Any chance there's some sort of any chance of a conversation here, Trent?
Well, and that's what it is.
Go ahead, Trent. Yeah.
No, that's what the conversation is. It's about Kirk Ferentz making the decision that he's going to move on. Unless the wheels would completely fall off, you couple that with a 2-10 season, and there's some kind of controversy that goes along with it. Kirk Ferentz is not going to get fired. Now, if it happens back-to-back years, we might be having a different conversation. And that's kind of the way that it ended almost 25 years ago now with Hayden Fry when his regime came to an end. So that's what we're looking at is that kind of conversation. He has built enough. He has enough equity in the program and for the people that really do matter, the people that write the checks, that it's not going to come to that even if they take a step back. And you just look at the consistency. Yeah, we make the jokes about the offense, and they certainly made big improvements this season, and they anticipate that the passing game is going to improve coming up this year. It's a tired narrative, though. It really is. Oh, make the jokes about Iowa offensively. This has been a problem for 3 years. This has been a team, yes, built a certain way in a certain style, but you go back and you look at their teams, that put 55 points up against Ohio State and did those kind of things. When you look at the way that Iowa's been built, it's just a narrative that unfortunately is tired. Now, Kirk Ferentz isn't in trouble. I have a couple of neighbors, though, I want to get your guys' thoughts on. First, Matt Rule. All right, they made a bowl game. But what if they take a step back in year number 3? The natives certainly restless there. And then our neighbors up to the northeast, up in Wisconsin, Luke Fickell has been maybe as disappointing of a coach as we've had in, the last 10 years in the Big Ten. With all the fanfare, Wisconsin's going to do it a different way. And they've been nothing short of a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I put Luke Fickell on this conversation and possibly flirting into the next segment of if he has another bad year, then do those conversations ramp up. But maybe you guys disagree. Maybe he's already on the hot seat. Maybe 2025 is the year that Luke Fickell has to get it done there in Wisconsin. Jay Stevens, host of Locked On Buckeyes.
It's tough, man. You're talking about a former Buckeye player being on the hot seat, but it's reality. I do think Luke Fickell has to get it done. And if he doesn't, he could be on the list with other guys that are in the Big Ten that are just guys that their names, but they haven't done it consistently. I don't know if anybody said this at all. Lincoln Riley, to me, is a guy that has to get it done this year. Yep. If they have, great. I know I'm hopping in the middle of the segment, but he is a guy that you come from Oklahoma, did a lot of great things in Oklahoma. Last year was really, really bad. If you do that again in back-to-back seasons, people aren't going to want you out there in LA anymore.
Oh, we do. If you're doing it bad,
Oh, hey, I'm glad you spoke up, Zach Anderson, Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA, because your guy is on my list for the next segment of if a 2025 season doesn't go the right way, could we have this conversation again 12 months from now? We'll talk about that coming up next right here on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. Today's episode of Locked On Big Ten Squad is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? I do it just about every single day. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building your wealth. And when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery or just eating out in general. And you don't think that $8, $10, $12 adds up, but over time, it really, really does. And now I can budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. And today's episode of the Locked On Big Ten Squad is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every single week, you can customize your meals to fit your style, whether it's Calorie Smart, which is what I use, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I don't eat it every day, but at least 3, maybe 4 days a week. I take it for lunch. I'll eat it for dinner, especially on the go during busy season. It's really the best option for me. The convenience is unbeatable. There's no prep, there's no mess, and great food in just minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off and use the code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Welcome back into the Big Ten Squad. We've got a whole crew here today. We've got Hoosiers represented, Huskies, UCLA, Buckeyes, Hawkeyes, and the Nittany Lions. And some of these names we're about to talk about here, gentlemen, may not be on the hot seat in 2025, but could be if 2025 doesn't go well. And Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, I mentioned you on the way out. I wrote your guy down, Deshaun Foster. What if 2025 isn't what you're looking for? Would they be willing to pull the plug that quickly on your man?
Not going to happen. I mean, if things go badly, of course, my emotions would swing and maybe I'd call for his job, but I just don't see it realistically happening. I kind of, from what I know, what I've seen, it doesn't seem like there's any chance, barring controversy or like an 0-12, that he would be gone. It would take the worst possible season, which, you know, it could happen. You never know. I just don't see it happening because if we remember, you have Chip Kelly, who was looking for NFL jobs, tried to get the Raider offensive coordinator job, then went to Ohio State to get a national championship as an offensive coordinator, then became the Raider offensive coordinator. Now, with a better coach, better staff than it would have been a year ago where he got canned. And you got Deshaun Foster with no experience, a pretty bad offense with Bieniemy. He's upgraded in some spots. Maybe a year with his full set of guys, coaches, players could be better, but he's not on the hot seat into 2026. If the next 2 years are bad, time to call for his job, though.
I was going to chime in. What are the odds that he takes an offensive coordinator job and just leaves on his own?
Deshaun Foster, I don't know. A running back job, maybe.
Which we've seen that become kind of popular, though, right? I mean, we've seen several big-name coaches, whether it's Power 4 or even some of these Group of Fives, who have said, to heck with head coaching, man. Let's just go be a coordinator. Don't have to worry about NIL. Don't have to worry about transfer portal. You just play with who you got, and you just go and be a coordinator, right? It seems to be kind of a more popular move nowadays.
In general, Bowling Green, I know it's an NFL job, but the Bowling Green head coach, Scott Loeffler, and I know because Penn State played Bowling Green this past season, but I saw that pop up on my feed. I said, man, he just gave up, it's a Group 5 head coaching job, but to be with the Eagles in the NFL, so I think it has to do more so with there are fewer headaches, and you actually get to, because when I heard Tom Allen speak for the first time when he took the Penn State defensive coordinator job, and one of the first things he emphasized that it was just great to get back to coaching football. What does that tell you? When you are at the head coach of a Power 4 program, regardless of where it is, that is the peak for most coaches, and you're saying that, actually this coordinator gig might be better at the end of the day. That's pretty telling about college football. And then we got all these legal hearings going on about NIL and revenue sharing and everything else. So it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And I just saw Cal Poly just cancel a couple of programs. I think it was swimming and diving. And they cited the fact that revenue sharing. So before we know it, football and men's basketball are going to be the predominant sports. And if you are a non-revenue sport, good luck to you. That's all I have to say. It's just good luck.
And it's just where it's going, unfortunately. And a name that I think we should throw in here, too, that seems to just be overlooked because somehow, some way, he ends up having a good year by the end of it. PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Anybody considering him in terms of whether they would get rid of him, whether he'd leave, or maybe he'll just coach there forever? I don't know. What about PJ Fleck at Minnesota?
I start with that one because Philip Fleck is one of my least favorite people in general. His personality drives me crazy. He is the last person that I'd want to have a beer with out of any of the Big Ten coaches. He's a fake, he's a phony, and of course it's Iowa's rival with the Gophers up there. I will tell you though, as somebody that grew up in North Iowa, grew up on the border, and fans of Minnesota sports and listen to a lot of sports talk up there, look, the Gophers are so far down the list. He has them relevant. He has them consistently winning football games. They are so far behind the Wild and the Vikings and the Timberwolves and the Twins, just in terms of sports specifically. Minnesota Gopher hockey is bigger than the football program is. And because of that, if he keeps going 7-5, they're completely fine. They're not the disaster that they were back during a lot of the 80s and 90s. And because of that, he's probably not ever going to have to worry about the hot seat as long as he can be an okay winner. That's what it is at Minnesota. That's the one kind of angle that I look at. And I had one name I wanted to throw your guys' way. And Jay, maybe I want to go to you first with this. Sherrod Moore, yes, it ended great. Beating Ohio State, beating Alabama in the bowl game, but it was also a 5-loss season. You do that again next year, also losing to Ohio State at the end of the season, stubbing your toe. It's Michigan coming on the heels of a national championship. They're not going to accept back-to-back 5-loss seasons, are they?
No, I don't think they will. But you also have to realize there's the coming punishment from the NCAA for their sign stealing thing. And if you go, let's say they do go five back-to-back 5-1 regular seasons, whatever it was, they got to the bowl game, but they're 500 at the end of the day in the regular season. If they lose to Ohio State and then they get punished, that's the formula to get them up out of there. The issue is you're bringing in someone else that doesn't want to deal with that nonsense. So maybe Michigan is willing to keep him a little bit longer to try to figure things out with him. And because it's going to be really hard to bring somebody in when you're losing scholarships, you're losing money, you're losing X, Y, and Z that the NCAA is handing down. But he's so new to the head coaching thing. I think I can see Michigan giving him 3 or maybe even 4 years to try to figure things out. They allowed Jim Harbaugh to lose 6, maybe 7 times to Ohio State.
A lot.
Way too many times to think about. I enjoyed every one of those losses that he had. But they gave him a lot of time to figure stuff out. The difference is Harbaugh played at Michigan. Sherrod Moore played at Oklahoma. So I think his leash will not be as long as Jim Harbaugh's. But I think next year, even if it's kind of a mediocre or average record, I think they'll give him 1 more year after that. But in year number 3, he has to figure it out. Or if not, he's up out of town.
And you could be in a Washington situation where it's still fresh, it's still new, like you guys talked about earlier, where you shouldn't have any big-time worries, right, Roman? I mean, you should have a little bit of time to get things figured out in Seattle.
Oh, absolutely. See, I want to call 2024 just year 0 for Jedd Fisch, where in essence you want to strike it from the record.
No. That's not allowed. You can't call it year 0. It's like week 0 in football. Nobody wants that. Call it week 1.
PJ Fleck tried to pull that off year 1 in Minnesota.
But see, was PJ Fleck replacing 44 players coming off a national championship berth with only the spring window to work
here
with?
we go.
I'm not even.
It seems like.
Excuses?
Other than like a national championship game, everybody's replacing 20
Isn't there a
players.
transfer portal you can use? I think there's a portal you can go get players.
Yeah,
about
but they
high school
didn't
and
have
JUCO?
the winter portal.
They're
That's
30.
my point. You didn't have the opportunity to take advantage of the winter portal. The only places that they could pull guys from were Alabama. After that wasn't happening. UCLA, once their coach left, Arizona, and San Jose State. That was the epitome of the winter portal that Jedd Fisch had to work with last year. And I'm not trying to whine and moan and say, oh, he got the short end of the stick.
Sounds like it, though.
That's because I've got 5 guys all saying that to me right now. No, it was, but the spring portal, that was gross. But this is a true year 1 for Jedd Fisch. He's got the quarterback that he wants in Damon Williams. We'll see what that looks like. And if it's not, a significant step forward from 6-7, where it's 8-4, 9-3 in the regular season, plus potentially a bowl win, then things might start getting in that direction. But I think he needs time because of, especially what the offensive line was last season. You're replacing the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. You're replacing 20-21 starters from that team that went to the national championship on a shorter offseason. It's tough. Where Jacob, like Kirk Zignetti at Indiana, he did a phenomenal job rebuilding that program, but he also
did.
had that entire winter portal to work with, which I think is something that really does go just unnoticed when he's getting replaced that late in the cycle.
So
I
is
think it's a
Deshaun
fair
Foster
point.
on year 0? I mean, that was year 0 for Deshaun Foster. I mean, let's be real.
I mean, it's been
Always
year zero for UCLA for what, 10 years now?
You know.
Hey, year one's right around the corner.
Let's
Zach.
go.
But hey,
I'll take
don't
year
you
0.
worry.
Yeah, I give you year 0.
Don't you
I'm
worry.
happy to give it to you. I think that works.
We've got basketball coming up, so Zach is going to be just fine. Do not feel bad for Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer.
But for Zach's sake, yeah, you should be.
Yeah, and Roman, too. I think he may end up having to dip out on
What's
this
up, Roman?
Hey, Zach, what's pro-season basketball like?
It's
The
a
crown.
tournament. Who's going to make it from the Big Ten, and can this conference win a national title? We're talking about that next right here on the Big Ten Squad. Today's episode of the Big Ten Squad is brought to you by TurboTax. This is a message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, we're still rolling on here with the Big Ten Squad, and I know it's fun talking offseason football things and which coaches could be fired. We got Roman fired up a little bit. That's okay, though. He dipped out when we started talking a little college basketball because the NCAA tournament is almost here, and we're going to talk about teams that we think are solidly in, ones that can make a run, and if the Big Ten can claim a national title in this college basketball season. And I wrote some things down because this is as of Tuesday, March 11th, and I know there's some moving parts because of conference tournaments and things like that. But Jay Stevens, you and I are really the only ones in terms of bubble teams that are going to be sweating on Selection Sunday because Zach Anderson, Yoxheimer of UCLA, and Iowa, you guys are fine. Zach Seiko, we appreciate you being here, man. And Jay, you and I are going to be stressing on Selection Sunday because we just can't get an answer.
Stressing big time. The Buckeyes are a team that if they lose on Wednesday, I believe it's against Iowa, they're probably not going to be dancing at all. And it's one of those seasons where Ohio State has the talent. There was some internal stuff that went on where they had some adversity. A guy that was supposed to be one of the top scorers is no longer on the team. And the Buckeyes are like Indiana. They got to make some noise in the Big Ten tournament. They have to. You can't just roll in there against Iowa and think, oh, we have a Bruce Dort that can get the thing done and be the kind of lead guard to make some noise in the Big Ten tournament and do enough to cement the spot in the big dance. You, as a collective unit, must go all out. Control everything you can control. Get the hustle stats and dominate that area. But I don't have faith in Ohio State's basketball team right now. I've lost faith in them shortly after we got into Big Ten play. I was like, oh, this team has a talent. They just don't play well consistently, which is a massive problem. But, Jacob, it's weird, man. Going into the year, I said Ohio State can make the tournament this year. And I'm sitting here right now, early in the week, saying they're not going to make it. I know it's still possible that they can. I just don't have faith in this team to do anything against Iowa to win that game on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I thought Ohio State was preseason. It was them and Michigan because of what they did in the transfer portal. I was excited for those two programs. Michigan has done pretty much what I thought they were going to do. And then Ohio State is just flamed out at the end. And that was, of course, Indiana beating them in the regular season finale, which may have just put us in to the NCAA tournament. But as of this recording, okay, Ohio State and Indiana are the last four in. You've got Michigan State as the 2 seed, as most of us would probably say is our best chance at a national title from the conference itself. You've got 3 teams as a 4 seed. Listen to this, guys. Wisconsin, Purdue, and Maryland are all 4 seeds. You've got Wisconsin, Purdue, Maryland, yep, and then the 5 seed and a 6 seed, 3 of them, Illinois, Michigan, and Zach, your UCLA Bruins in there as a 6 seed as well. So my question to everybody is, who has the best chance to make some noise? Let's say a Sweet 16, and then can we get a team to the Final Four and win a national championship? Open-ended to whoever wants to jump in.
One, I want to shout out Nebraska because their end of the season choke got them from like next 4 out to not even in the Big Ten tournament. That was an unbelievable, like they lost to Michigan in the 40s. They had quintuple, what was it, Jay? Something crazy overtimes with Nebraska. That was a crazy game. And then, that was a big flame. I thought Nebraska
They lost to Penn State. They're awful.
But, the shout out to them because I thought they were good enough, and then they went downhill, couldn't even make their own conference tournament. For UCLA, I think the biggest thing is, with all the travel you have, I think it's more important for these teams on the further coast, the West and the East Coast, that you get UCLA. They want to play in Seattle or Denver in the first round, get in the West Regional, East Regional, right? You want to go play your first round games and have to travel to the West Coast or go. So I think for the Bruins, it's a little bit matchup based, right? If UCLA is a 6 seed, the latest bracketology from Joe Lunardi had Kentucky as a 3 seed. Give me that. Let's feast. Let's go.
You want Kentucky?
As the 3 seed? There's much better 3 seeds out there than Kentucky. Let's be real.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, UCLA is as likely to go to the Final Four as they are to lose in the first round. Like, I am going to be all over the place for the men's side. Like, it's all possible. I was very confident earlier in the preseason when, all right, UCLA can be a third weekend team, but they have a lot of flaws. But they play Mick Cronin defense, so anything is possible, to winning the Big Ten tournament to losing 2 in a row and their season's done. That is the UCLA way at this moment.
I like this UCLA team coming into the year too. If of all the just talent roster-wise, 1 through 13, however you want to kind of grade it, I kind of like theirs the best. I just didn't think it was going to go very well. Year number 1 of the Big Ten, all the new faces, plus the travel in year number 1, and kind of figuring that out. I still love the talent of this team though, and Michigan State's been great recently, but Izzo's had so many flameouts recently in the NCAA tournament. It's hard to really wrap your arms around him and say, yeah, this is going to be a Final Four team. I'll be surprised, actually. I think the Big Ten is down again this year. I'll be surprised if we see a team in the regional final, a team in the Elite Eight. I think we're going to have everybody knocked out. Maybe a couple Sweet 16 teams, but that's going to be it. When we get to Saturday and Sunday of the regionals, I don't think we're going to be watching a Big Ten team.
I hope not. I mean, I hope now Indiana, again, we're trying to get off the play-in game and just get into the NCAA tournament. My confidence is not very high because it's Mike Woodson and we just never know what we're going to get on his way out. But you have teams like Purdue, and Oregon was the one I was trying to get to earlier. If you write down the wrong name, you're going to read the wrong name. Oregon is a 5 seed that I think is very dangerous offensively, along with Wisconsin, who can get extremely hot from behind the three-point line, but they can also get extremely cold behind the three-point line. So it seems like those teams, I feel like personally, have the best chance to get to a second weekend because they can shoot the ball very well. But Seiko, you on the outside looking in, who's your pick? Who's going to make the most noise in the NCAA tournament from the Big Ten this season?
Well, I'm glad that we can talk about wrestling now. I'm just kidding. Because there is an NCAA tournament going on very soon for college wrestling as well. So
March Madness, right? That's what they call it?
March Madness. So that's where I will be focused on. Even if Penn State basketball had made it to the Big Ten tournament, just kind of it gives me a little bit of tunnel vision here. But Penn State basketball is kind of seeing some of these teams periodically throughout the season, and Maryland's a good team. All right. Michigan State's hopefully the juggernaut here. Just a lot of these teams have been up and down and shown inconsistencies because I want to believe in Oregon. I want to believe in Illinois as those true, hey, they could be a dark horse to go to the Final Four. They should be expected to make the Elite Eight, right? And then there's just days that they really don't show up. And I'm going to echo Trent here. I don't think I am pessimistic that there aren't any teams from the Big Ten that make the Elite Eight, let alone the Final Four. I'm concerned that they're not even going to be in the top 8. If you go to Ken Palm's rankings, the only team I think that is in the top 10 is Michigan State from the Big Ten. And then the next closest is Wisconsin at 12. 11 through 20 is filled with Big Ten teams. But that's clearly not top 8. That's clearly not top 4. And Ken Palm's rankings are essentially an estimate, right, of how teams do on average. It's not a predictor. It's not an indicator, but it gives us a decent idea of where those teams are. And the Big Ten's just not built for March. They're just not. Outside of Purdue getting to the final last year, there really just isn't this consistent group of Big Ten teams that constantly make these deep title runs. The SEC has college men's basketball on a lockdown here with, some other select teams here and there. But the Pac-12 dissolved. So this is the SEC sport until further notice.
We'll see how it goes. The Big Ten tournament happening as we speak, or as you see and listen to this. And then the NCAA tournament coming up next week. Maybe somebody surprises us and the Big Ten can have a little fun in March Madness. Be sure you check out all of our shows, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network across the Big Ten. And until next time, we appreciate you being here. This has been another episode of the Locked On Big Ten Squad.